Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Diriyat Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. So Prabhupada is in Indore and is giving lectures, holding classes, doing everything he can. Prabhupada began making life members in Indore by sending Hansaduta out alone. Hansaduta was inexperienced and even skeptical that anyone would pay the 1,111 rupees. Hansaduta. One day Prabhupada told me to go to the market with the neighbor and take these books. He had 3 Krishna books and try to make some life members. Just show them the books, he said, and tell them this is a token of our work. Then ask them to please help our mission by becoming a life member of 1,111 rupees. I was thinking that no one was going to give 1,000 rupees for 2 or 3 books, so I just didn't do anything about it. I just avoided the issue. The next day, Prabhupada gave me the same instruction, but again, I didn't do anything. On the third day, he said, I had to go. So I went next door and got a man who took me to the cloth merchants. We went to the shop of the biggest cloth merchant in Indore. The man didn't speak English, so the neighbor who had accompanied me translated. I would say, tell him this, tell him that, and the man would translate everything. After I had exhausted my presentation, I said, now ask him to give a check for 1,111 rupees. My translator relayed the message, and the merchant immediately took out his checkbook and wrote the check. Then we visited another merchant, and the same thing happened. He immediately wrote a check. We went to another merchant. He also became a life member. So I made 3 life members on the first day, and when I came back and told Prabhupada, he was in ecstasy. By sending disciples and by sometimes going out himself, Srila Prabhupada soon had a dozen ISKCON life members in Indore. Prabhupada, Hansaduta, and Giriraj visited the king of Indore and invited him to become a life member. But the king declined. The devotees were disappointed. And in the car on the way back to Gita Bhavan, Hansaduta asked Prabhupada, did I say the right thing about the books? My books are like gold, Prabhupada replied. It doesn't matter what you say about them. One who knows the value, he will purchase. And actually, that is true when we did book distribution also. It didn't matter what we said. We only said some foolish things, or we tried to say something nice. But actually, what the main thing was, we used to give the book in the hand of a potential buyer, and then we would say something. Then the book would sell by its own, actually, just because that person had touched the books. Because visitors often ask Prabhupada and his disciples what they thought of various popular spiritual teachers, Prabhupada gave his disciples hints on answering such questions. If the teacher was not a bona fide follower of Vedic scripture, Prabhupada said, the devotee should reply, Swami, who, by thus indicating that he had not heard of the particular teacher, he would minimize the teacher's importance. Then the devotee should ask, what is this Swami's philosophy? When the person explained, the devotee could defeat the particular philosophy without attacking the person. India had many Mayavadi gurus, Prabhupada explained, and they often traveled in groups from one convention to another. Although each had his particular style, primarily they were interested in chapatis. And for every chapati, he said, there are many Mayavadis, so there is competition. One of Prabhupada's frequent visitors was Vairagi Baba, an educated man who had visited America and who spoke fluent English. He regularly joined in the kirtan with the devotees, chanting and dancing with them on stage. And when he visited Prabhupada in his room, he behaved with Prabhupada in a familiar way, too familiar. Prabhupada's disciples thought, but Prabhupada tolerated him. One day, some devotees met Vairagi Baba at a lunch engagement, and they noticed he was drinking tea. Almost naively, and yet with an air of challenge, one of the devotees asked why he was drinking tea. Oh, I'm an Avadhuta, Vairagi Baba replied. The devotees who had never heard this before reported the incident to Prabhupada. Avadhuta, Prabhupada explained, means one who is beyond the regulative principles. Generally, this refers to Nityananda Prabhu. Prabhupada disapproved of Vairagi Baba's tea drinking and especially of his himself calling an Avadhuta. So, yes, Avadhuta generally refers to Nityananda Prabhu only, who has so much of love for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he is beyond the regulative principles. He doesn't need to follow, although he still follows, but he is beyond. So nobody else can be an Avadhuta. A small group of devotees was sitting with Prabhupada in his room one afternoon. Srimati Radharani's excellence was her cooking, Prabhupada said. She could also sing and dance, but her great service was her cooking for Krishna. Mother Yashoda would ask her personally to come and cook for Krishna and the cowherd boys. So all in a line, she would feed them prasada. An Indian lady came to the door, bringing an offering of chilwa, fried cashews, potatoes, and raisins with spices. Srila Prabhupada took some, then distributed the rest to the other devotees. Do you like this? He asked, turning to Yamuna. Oh, it's very, very tasty, she replied. Yes, he said. You should learn to prepare this. I like it very much. My Guru Maharaj was also fond of potato chilwa, and he would sometimes request it late in the afternoon. He was very fond of it. Srila Prabhupada, a devotee asked, may we publish pictures of you without tilak? Yes, he replied. My Guru Maharaj has been recorded without tilak. You have seen that picture where he is looking up from his books at his working table. Yes, the devotee replied, I have seen that picture. I have seen you look in the very same way, with the very same expression as in the picture of a Guru Maharaj. You have only seen the glitter, Prabhupada corrected. He is a gold. I am only iron. Iron can never be gold. But you have seen the glitter of real gold. So this is how Prabhupada looked at his own Guru Maharaj. One afternoon, a renowned astrologer visited Prabhupada and offered to read his palm. No, Prabhupada replied, I am finished with that. But you may read my disciples' palms. The astrologer read the palms of the several devotees present, made his predictions, and then left. The devotees turned to Prabhupada, wondering what to make of it. As soon as you clap your hands in front of the deities during Aarti, Prabhupada said, smiling, all the lines of your palms are changed. So no need to go to a palmist anymore. Srila Prabhupada told his disciples a story about when he had lived in Vrindavan. A Bengali widow walked to the Yamuna river to take her bath every morning. And every morning, without fail, she would return with a pot of water for the Radha Damodar Pujaris to use in bathing the deities. Prabhupada said he would sometimes open the gate for the woman, but since he also rose very early and she would enter and wake the pujari. Although the Vrindavan nights are cold in the winter, Prabhupada said the woman never once failed to come with the water. For this activity, she will return back to Gata. One who cannot rise early in the morning is not very serious about spiritual life. One must rise before the Brahma Muhurta hour, that is very auspicious, and one will take the trouble to do so if he is serious about spiritual life. So, wonderful instructions for us also. So, if we can also get up early in the morning before Brahma Muhurta, yes, we can say, oh, I have so many things to do in the daytime, to do my job or business, if it is practical, without getting sick. If one can do that. And if it is possible to take a nap in the afternoon, if it is too much to get up early in the morning, one should do that. One day Prabhupada was sitting outside near his bungalow, chanting on his beads, when an unknown man approached, calling out the names of Krishna. Suddenly the man fell to the ground, rolling and crying, appearing to be in great ecstasy. Prabhupada remained seated and observed the exhibition, but made no response. The man continued his crying and rolling and chanting. Prabhupada now ignored him completely. After several minutes, the man got up and walked away, obviously disappointed. Early one morning, as Prabhupada sat in his room with his disciples, a gentleman entered and tearfully announced that his mother was dying. The devotees, watching for Prabhupada's reaction, saw him remain grave. He didn't try to reassure the man who preached to him. but made only a very mild comment. Prabhupada was unpredictable. He was always Krishna conscious and he always acted in accord with Guru and Shastra. But exactly how he would act in a given situation was unpredictable. Whatever he did, however, was Krishna conscious and correct, and he was always instructing them by his example. On Prabhupada's last morning in Indore, he continued the story of Ajamil. He explained that because Ajamil had uttered the holy name, he had immediately obtained salvation, even though he had been so sinful. So Ajamil, at the time of his death, just remembered his youngest son, whose name was Narayan. The very name of Narayan has got the full potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. That is the secret of his Nam Sankirtan movement. By chanting the holy name of Narayan, you immediately contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nam, the Lord's name, is not material, it is spiritual. Krishna and Krishna's name, there is no difference. In a very appealing voice, Ajamil began to ask his son Narayan, please come here, I am dying. He was very afraid of the Yamdutas. Krishna sent the Vishnu Dutas to give Ajamil shelter. The Vishnu Dutas looked just like Lord Narayan with 4 hands. With a grave voice, they said to the Yamdutas, what are you doing? Stop, you cannot take this man to Yamaraj. Prabhupada ended his lecture and his stay in Indore, having accepted an invitation to travel to Surat in the state of Gujarat and hold Krishna conscious programs. He and his disciples would be leaving shortly. Devotees from Bombay would also join them. Prabhupada had come to Indore for the Gita Jayanti Mahotsav, but actually the Mahotsav was but a small part of his preaching in Indore. He had met hundreds of people, made life members and friends. He had touched their lives. His presence in Indore would leave a lasting impression. Baba Bal Mukund. I have seen many sadhus and great saints in this Gita Bhavan. I saw Srila Prabhupada also in the same place. I was very much impressed by Srila Prabhupada and his preaching. It was because Prabhupada had revealed the reality about bhakti. Because he was a pure bhakta, that he could change the people of the West and give them another dress. He could give them another diet. He could entirely change the culture and give them true bhakti. And this was the greatest thing Prabhupada has done. Let the world say as it likes, but he has done a marvelous thing regarding Lord Krishna's bhakti. What Swami Vivekananda, Swami Ramtirtha and others could not do, Srila Prabhupada has done. It's a marvelous thing. So he's saying what Swami Vivekananda could do. Yes, he came, he gave a lecture in Chicago, spent some time, but then he went back. He couldn't change anybody. But Prabhupada changed, not just changed, transformed their heart and their whole life. That's preaching. Surat, December 17, 1970. It was like a dream come true. Thousands lined the streets for many blocks while the devotees, playing kartals and mridangas and chanting Hare Krishna, made their way along. Spectators stood on rooftops or clustered at windows and doorways while others joined the procession. The police had stopped traffic at the intersections, allowing only the Kirtan procession to pass. The earthen road, freshly swept and sprinkled with water, had been decorated with rice flower designs of auspicious Vedic symbols. Green, freshly cut banana trees adorned either side of the way. Overhead, women's saris, strung like bunting across a narrow roadway, formed a brightly colored canopy over the Kirtan party. Mr. Bhagubhai Jariwala, Prabhupada's host in Surat, had advertised the daily parade routes in the local newspapers, and now, day after day, the devotees were holding a Kirtan procession through various sections of the city. While more than 20 of Prabhupada's disciples led the daily procession, the thousands of Indians chanted, cheered, and clamored to see, and women threw flower petals from the rooftops. So that's because Gujarat, they have this bhakti in them. The bhakti is inbuilt in them. Often the procession would have to stop as families came forward to garland the devotees. Sometimes the devotees would receive so many garlands that their blissful faces would be scarcely visible, and they would distribute the garlands to the people in the crowd. Never before had the devotees met with such a reception. It's a city of devotees, Prabhupada said. He compared the people of Surat to dry grass catching fire. By nature, they were Krishna conscious, but the arrival of Srila Prabhupada and his Sankirtan party had been like a torch, setting the city spiritually ablaze. The entire population of Surat seemed to turn out every morning as tens of thousands flocked at 7 a.m. to the designated neighborhood. So, whichever place they had designated that today Kirtan will be or Sankirtan will be on this street from here to here, tens of thousands of people come at 7 a.m. Men, women, laborers, merchants, professionals, the young, the old, and all the children, everyone seemed to be taking part. Cramming the streets and buildings, they would wait for the Kirtan party, and when the devotees arrived, everyone became joyous. Prabhupada attended only a couple of the morning processions, preferring to stay in his quarters at Mr. Jariwala's home. Each morning, Prabhupada would come out onto his second floor balcony just as the devotees were leaving. Although the mornings were cold and many of the devotees sick, seeing Prabhupada on the balcony offering them his blessings eased their troubles. Prabhupada would wave and the devotees would set off down the street chanting. The devotees had no special paraphernalia other than mridangas and kartals, no flags, no marching band, no rath cart, just an enthusiastic kirtan party. And there was no official pandal, no sadhu saman, no Vedanta Sammelan, no Gita Jayanti Mahotsav. Just an entire city of Krishna bhaktas waiting eagerly for the American Hare Krishna chanters. To be worshipped for chanting Hare Krishna was just the opposite of what the devotees had experienced in the West. In Hamburg, Chicago, New York, London, Los Angeles, the devotees had been insulted, threatened with arrest, assaulted, and ignored. Of course, sometimes they had been tolerated and even appreciated, but never honored. So in Surat, they had a completely different experience. The daily Sankirtan outing was exhausting, since the route was long and stops frequent. Many of the devotees had sore throats from singing, and the usual digestive upsets persisted. But the devotees took everything as a mercy of Lord Chaitanya, who was allowing them to engage a whole city in his Sankirtan movement. 20 devotees from the West had just arrived in Surat, as had an American photographer, John Greaser, on assignment for Asia magazine. John went out every day to shoot the Kirtan processions, and as he did, he felt himself becoming caught up in something much greater than a mere photo assignment. The people of Surat, who considered themselves Krishna Bhaktas at heart, saw Prabhupada as a great saint. And they saw his disciples in whom they found the true Vaishnava qualities as saints also. The devotees' dress, behavior, and way of life showed pure bhakti yoga, and the kirtan was genuine worship of the holy name. By honoring the Lord's devotees, the people of Surat knew they were honoring Lord Krishna himself. Devotion to Krishna was the heart of their own culture, yet they had never expressed it to such a degree as now. After several days of Kirtan processions, the mayor of Surat, Mr. Vaikunt Shastri, closed all schools and proclaimed a holiday throughout the city. Everyone was now free to celebrate the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and chant Hare Krishna. Signs throughout the city read in Gujarati, "Welcome to the American and European devotees of Krishna, and welcome to the members of the Hare Krishna movement." The devotees felt tired and blissful as they returned to Mr. Jariwala's home, and Prabhupada was waiting for them. As soon as they saw him, they all bowed down. Chidanand. Prabhupada was at the foot of the stairs, greeting us. We were in complete bliss with flower garlands all over us, big smiles on our faces. We were very happy that we had been so well received. It was as if Prabhupada was standing there saying, "Just see how wonderful this Krishna consciousness is. Just see how happy you are." He was standing there smiling. He was so happy that we were happy. The devotees were not alone. However, as they returned to Mr. Jariwala's home, for hundreds of Indians thronged behind them, eager to see Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, his disciples, and a clamoring crowd of Surat devotees squeezed tightly into Prabhupada's room. The guests, those who got in, inquired about ISKCON and its activities, while those outside pushed to get inside. The crowd around the house grew so great that traffic could not pass. While Prabhupada continued to answer questions inside, the crowd outside grew larger and more restless. By their good fortune, they had realized Prabhupada's greatness and they wanted to be with him. As their desire became stronger, their eagerness more intense, Prabhupada got up from his seat and walked out to the balcony. The crowd roared, Hare Krishna, their arms upraised. Can we imagine the scene in Surat? When Prabhupada returned inside, the crowd remained unsatisfied and he asked some of his disciples to try and pacify them. Several devotees went out to the people, answering their questions and telling them Prabhupada would come out to see them again. Bhagavai Jariwala had come in contact with Prabhupada's movement several years before in San Francisco, when he had donated a silver murti of Krishna to the San Francisco temple. Now the Jariwala family, to accommodate their guests, had moved into modest quarters on the roof of their home and offered the rest of the house to Prabhupada and his disciples. Hospitable hosts, they made the devotees feel welcome to stay forever. At lunch and again in the evening, Prabhupada would take prasadam with the devotees and guests. The devotees sitting in rows on the floor and Prabhupada sitting at the head in a chair at the table. Mr. Jariwala and his family would serve everyone. Often respectable citizens would also attend the lunches. Mr. Chandra Desai, the Chief Minister of Gujarat, Mr. Vaikuntha Shastri, Surat's mayor, the State Education Minister, and others attended. The prasadam was the finest Gujarati cooking, and when a dish was particularly to Prabhupada's liking, he would ask one of his women disciples to learn from Mrs. Jariwala how to cook it. Honoring prasadam twice a day with Prabhupada was another intimacy the devotees shared with their spiritual master in India. Had they been with him in any other part of the world, such intimacy would probably have been impossible. But wonderful, hospitable hosts, so the devotees were enjoying being with Prabhupada. Okay, I guess we can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments.
It is true, Prabhuji, that Gujaratis by nature are actually Krishna's devotee.
Yeah, that is true.
Means I am in my society or in temple also. I see there are a lot of people who are from Vallabha Sampradaya or different Sampradaya. They were, but now they are serving in ISKCON.
Yeah, wonderful devotees and very God conscious, if not Krishna conscious. And they do service also. Money wise, physically, they do lots of service. Yep, that's true. Chalo, we'll stop here. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare
Hare
Krishna. Thank you.
Krishna.